Good morning, and thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I am well.
Thank you.
And I was just thinking for a moment that this will be the first time I'm actually putting questions to you, and you are responding. You'll be responding to me. I've been sitting close to you for several years, but you've never had this privilege.
Wow.
Well, let me start first then by asking you for let's start because this is known as the Day of Shame. At what point did this designation come in? Because it was an overthrow. When did we start marking it as the Day of Shame?
Well, the Socialist Forum then decided to mark 24th February as the Day of Shame, and that must be about 30 years ago. And we decided to mark it as the Day of Shame because this was the day on which the aspirations of the African people were trampled under the feet of the forces of imperialism. This was the day on which our aspirations for development was smashed. This was the day on which those who opposed our independence struggle managed to set us back and so on. So we decided to commemorate this day as the Day of Shame about 30 years ago.
And for 30 years, you've been doing it every year on this same day. How has it been like? And let me take you back to when you started calling it the Day of Shame. Did you see some resistance from some forces who felt that perhaps what you were saying was not the truth?
Well, the facts of history are very clear, and the facts of history cannot be contested. This is obviously the Day of Shame. There cannot be any doubt about it. Look at the economic crisis in which we find ourselves today. That's a vindication of our stance. Look at the abuse of the rights of our people since 24 February 1966. Look at the degeneration that the African project has suffered since 1966. So there's no doubt that this is the Day of Shame. And I haven't seen any serious attempt at denigrating the things that we're doing to mark the Day of Shame. The facts of history speak for itself.
Do you think we observe this day the way we are supposed to as Ghanaians? I know you have done your part, but should it receive a lot more recognition than it does?
Well, the day is growing. I mean, when we started, we were the only people who were observing the Day of Shame. The Socialist Forum of Ghana then was the only organization which is observing the Day of Shame. Since then, many others have joined. I've seen flyers suggesting that it will be marked on this weekend, the 25th of February, to be marked somewhere in Adenta. I've seen flyers suggesting that the Convention People's Party would also mark it. And I've seen flyers suggesting that other organizations will mark it. So it is growing. It is becoming bigger and bigger. And I do hope that in the not too distant future, this will become a major national observance. The Day of Shame will become a major national observance.
And today, as always, you are organizing an event to mark the day. Tell us what will be happening today.
Well, today at exactly 4 o'clock, we will start a public forum at the headquarters of the Socialist Movement of Ghana, which is next door to the Noga Hill Hotel on the George Walker Bush Highway, and it will start at 4 o'clock. Interestingly, this event will be chaired by none other than Dr. Yao Ba, Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress of Ghana. The speakers would include Honorable Okudato Ablakwa, and then Professor Ikuya Bitum of the University of Cape Coast. I've also been asked to speak, so I'll be there.
Well, how can such a day go without us listening to you, by the way? But I was wondering how you got... I know Nkrumah's link to the trade union movement and how strongly how strong that link was. But I'm wondering how you got Dr. Ba to agree to chair the event.
No, I mean, any Ghanaian, any African who wants to see our continent grow and develop, who want to see our continent assert itself, would definitely identify with the day of shame. Don't forget that before February 24, 1966, the Convention People's Party had the trade union movement as an integral wing. It's integral wing. Don't forget that the trade union movement actually played a yeoman's role in the struggle for national independence, especially unions like the Railway and Enginemen's Workers' Union and so on. They were in the forefront of that struggle. So our victory in the national liberation struggle is also the victory of the trade union movement. You understand? So the trade union movement owns the achievements of the Nkrumah government. The trade union movement owns our victories in the national liberation struggle. The trade union movement is not an outsider. In fact, the trade union movement is a front runner in the struggle for national independence and the reconstruction, the effort to reconstruct Ghana, after the success of the independence movement.
So this is as much theirs as it is for every Ghanaian.
It is more theirs than ours. I think the victory over colonialism was a major victory for the trade union movement, not just in Ghana, but throughout Africa.
And I realize that your theme today is national economic chaos vindicates Nkrumah. Is that to suggest that? Okay, so first, then I should put the question this way: what are you trying to say, essentially, by choosing that theme? What is the message you're communicating?
Well, the first message was that, is that the overthrow of Nkrumah was meant to reverse the gains that we had made, in the development of an independent national economy. That was one of the purposes of the coup. And we believe that strongly because of the facts which have been unearthed since the coup. We found this very interesting document, which is a cable which was sent from Accra by the then British High Commissioner, A.W. Snelling, to his home government. In that cable, the British High Commissioner makes the point that they had to get rid of the Nkrumah government because it was making the African too politically conscious, and that if they didn't get rid of Nkrumah, they would not be able to pursue their interest in Africa. What was their interest in Africa? That was the colonial power which had just been defeated in the national liberation struggle. That was the colonial power which was pillaging, stealing our resources and so on. And it wanted us to get rid of Nkrumah so that they can continue to pillage our resources and so on. What we're having today, the chaos in the national economy and so on, is a direct result of this coup d'etat. What we're having today, the general chaos, the huge indebtedness, our inability to pay and so on, are symptomatic of the collapse of the new liberal order. What we have today, the national economic chaos, clearly tells us that the coup of 1966 failed and has imposed upon us hardships, and so on. So that's the point we're trying to make.
Well, we are looking forward to how things will turn out. Anyone who wants to be at this event, you said they need to come to the Socialist Forum Socialist Movement of Ghana's headquarters at near Nogahi Hotel on the George Walker Bush Highway.
Yes, 4 p.m., sir.
4 p.m.
4 p.m.
I'll end by asking you, for a lot of young people, whenever they hear this, they usually say, oh, that's history. 57 years ago. It's too way back. Let's move on. It's happened already. What do you say to those who say that it is not relevant to continue these discussions on these matters?
Well, my answer is very simple. Those young people have seen the price of kinky rise 300% in less than 2 years. Those young people have seen the price of petroleum products jump by more than 100% in 1 year. Those young people are the very people who are able to find jobs after school. Those young people are the very people who suffer lack of access to health facilities. Those young people are the very people who, when they start work, cannot find houses. This condition in which they find themselves shows that what we are talking about is not just history. What we are talking about is the present. What we are talking about is how history is shaping today. And it's their own history to try and understand their conditions. I know that many people are asking questions about how we got here. And if you continue to ask questions about how we got here, the inevitable conclusion is that the 1960s coup was part of the reasons why we are here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you, sir.
And I wish you a successful event.